Hello everyone, welcome back. There's been this thing that's still floating around in the Genshin Impact community, especially amongst the meta slavers and the TCers, and I really want to talk about it because I feel like people are still approaching this topic wrong, and that is the idea of how Yae Miko is exclusively a Stellar Conduct character and nothing else. As in, she is actually nowhere near as versatile as I make her out to be, and that you should only ever play her in a Stellar Conduct team. Case in point. So Jeff did a video talking about the Odette pre-release. He was thinking about whether or not a newer player should get Miko or Odette, and using exclusively flexibility and versatility as a reasoning, he chose Odette. Ostensibly because Odette has Stellar Conduct Stellar Swell teams where she's going to be best in slot, and Miko currently only has Stellar Conduct teams where she is best in slot. At least when it comes to teams that are actually meta. Okay, I get that. I don't necessarily disagree with that particular assessment. But what I think is that's wrong. Especially for a newer player. A newer player, in all likelihood, probably isn't the most meta-brained of all time, number one. Number two, they might want to try and play a variety of other teams. And that is where I come back with the whole thing where Miko is way more flexible than someone like Odette, or even someone like Ineffa. Why? Because even though Miko's current best in slot team, the team that actually makes complete use of her kit, is of course Stellar Conduct, because a few of the buffs, not even a lot, a few of the buffs that came from Miko have to do with exclusively Stellar Conduct. She's got a lot of things going that actually works perfectly fine in Overload teams, Aggravate teams, Spread teams, Lunar Charge teams, Mono Electro teams, etc, etc, etc. To that end, I would argue that Miko is far more flexible than someone like Odette. Someone like Odette, as far as I understand, will have a kit that is kind of similar in flexibility, versatility as someone like Ineffa. Let's have a look at Ineffa's kit, because we can actually test right now Ineffa's kit. That's kind of why I wanted to pivot to Ineffa, just as like an alternative sort of character to look at. Because Ineffa's kit has three main things going for her. She's got a shield, she's got direct lunar charge damage, so long as she can trigger a lunar charge thundercloud, and then she's also got EM share coming from her ult if you use her in a team that actually cares about EM. That's going to be useful. If you use her in a team that actually can trigger lunar charge, her direct lunar charge damage is going to be very useful, right? Awesome. But there are teams where this is all going to be completely inapplicable, and I am of course talking about like an Overload team. Suddenly there's no direct lunar charge damage, suddenly there's no need for an EM share. Her kit is practically non-existent at that point. She's only existing for Birgitta doing some off-field electro damage and a shield. That's it. Even in like a Kategari spread hypercarry team, I can still make the case to consider bringing in Ineffa from time to time, because that EM share is still pretty damn useful. So there is that, right? When it comes to versatility, I think we gotta stop thinking about exclusively how many best in slot teams, and rather, and more importantly, how many meta teams is a character best in slot in. Because that's kind of like the tippy cream of the crop kind of nonsense. And instead think about not just how many teams is a character best in slot in, but also exactly how much worse are they in teams that are not the most optimal. Let me explain what I mean by that. Let's have a look at what is currently the most optimal Yae Miko team, being a Stellar Conduct team with Sandy, Shilin, and Chi-Chi. And we'll compare it to an Overload team with Shogun, Duran, Nicole. And we're going to look at exactly how much less damage Yae Miko does in these teams. Spoiler alert, her own personal DPS is going to drop by half. A little less than half, but make no mistake, that is a pretty steep drop. So obviously, this is not a video where I'm trying to debunk this idea that Stellar Conduct is Miko's best team. It is. Make no mistake, Stellar Conduct is in fact Miko's best team. And the difference between something like Stellar Conduct versus Overload is about 50% of Miko's personal DPS. Cool. Okay, But let's just have a look at how the team functions right now. So like I mentioned, it's a 50% personal DPS drop. But here's the thing. That's actually not nearly as bad as some other characters. Again, I'm going to use Ineffa as an example, but I get the feeling this is going to be the case with Odette as well. We have a Lunar Charge team with Miko, Sucrose, Columbina, and we have, again, an Overload team with Shogun, Nicole Duran. I want you to have a look at how much less damage Ineffa is doing. And then on top of that, I want you to keep in mind, yes, she's doing less damage, but what about her buffs? The EM share from her ult is completely worthless in a team like this, because the target doesn't have a permanent Hydra aura. We're not fighting Tulpa. If we're fighting Tulpa, then we have not really a comparison worth thinking about, because they're going to be more or less the same. Well, one's going to be a little bit stronger, but that kind of isn't what we're talking about. That kind of breaks the whole point of talking about versatility. How much less damage is Ineffa doing? Spoiler alert, it's more than 80%. I didn't actually do the calculation. I'm just mental math it. I'm going to write it down on the screen. But understand this. With someone like Miko, her own personal DPS is going to drop by a half if you're not playing Stellar Conduct. I get it. Big difference. But with someone like Ineffa, you're losing more than 80% of her DPS and 2/3 of her kit. Because, if anything, because you're losing 2/3 of her kit, you have effectively lost 80% of Ineffa's personal DPS. At that point, Ineffa is not a character that you should ever play unless you are absolutely desperate in Imaginarium Theatre. You should never play Ineffa in an Overload team. But I would never make the case that you should never play Miko in an Overload team. I think Miko is absolutely perfectly valid in an Overload team. I think Miko is absolutely perfectly valid in a spread team. In fact, she is, by my understanding, still the best in slot Electro off-fielder in a spread hypercarry team. Despite the fact that spread teams are not meta at the moment, Alhaitham hasn't been meta in a while. Despite the fact that they're not meta at the moment, within that archetype, Miko is still the best Electro offfielder in the game. You know, you think about other teams like the Inquisition, various Quick Bloom teams, be it with actual Quick Bloom characters, or hell, Nefer, Columbina, you get her C2, they actually work in that team. You don't actually need to play Stellar Conduct to have her C2 EM share actually work. All of this comes together for me to say, I completely disagree that Odette is the more versatile character. I think Miko is by far the most versatile character. And then looking forward in the future, based on rumors that we have at the moment, if Rhymegrass becomes real, and it's something that actually interacts with Electro as well, that's going to be +1 team archetype for both Odette and Yae Miko actually. So at that point, their versatility sort of comparison is going to just basically be the same. And so to that end, especially a newer player, if you can, I think you should get Miko, because the illustrious in the extreme, her royal holiness, the god of sass, Yae Miko the Wise and Beautiful, is very much more versatile than someone like Odette. Let me know what you think about all of this in the comments below. I don't know, how do you feel about the whole versatility, flexibility discussion? Let me know in the comments. Like, maybe you still subscribe to the idea that a character is only versatile if they are best in slot, if they are like the absolute best possible option available for a variety of teams. If that's the case, then the character you really liked back in the day was Farina during the Fontaine cycle, because that's what she was. That's what she was. That's what Nouvelette was for a while. You know, to some extent, it's kind of what Columbina was during the Not Cry cycle, except not really. That's a little bit 50-50, but like you're basically, you would then be in love with Hydro offfielders. I'll just say this too. I also think Farina is one of, if not the most versatile characters in the game still. So, I don't know. There we go. Anyway, hope you guys enjoyed. If you like this video, hit that like button, subscribe for more Genshin Impact action, and as always, until next time, I'll see you guys later. Thanks for watching. Bye!